There is a moment that every prepared family dreads. The shelves at the store are empty. The truck stopped coming 3 days ago. And the only food left in your house is whatever you had the sense to grow yourself. This is not a scenario from a movie. It has happened before, in places that look just like your neighborhood, and it can happen again. Supply chains look strong right up until the moment they are not, and most families only discover how fragile the system is after it has already broken. The families who survived those moments were not the ones with the biggest bunkers or the most guns. They were the ones who could still put food on the table when nobody else could. Food, not ammunition, is what determines whether a family makes it through the first 90 days of any real crisis. And the good news is, you do not need a farm to do this. You do not even need a backyard. Some of the most food-secure households I have studied live in apartments 3 floors up with nothing but a railing, a few pots, and the discipline to use them. You need pots, a bit of light, and the right knowledge. Today, I am going to show you 15 crops that can turn a balcony, a windowsill, or a small patch of concrete into a lifeline for your family. So let's get into it. Let's start with the crop that should be in every prepper's home before anything else. Number 1 is the potato. Potatoes are calorie-dense, meaning a small amount of space gives you a large amount of energy, which is exactly what your family needs when food is scarce. A single 5-gallon bucket can produce several pounds of potatoes, and they store for months without refrigeration if kept cool and dark. There is a technique called hilling, where you keep adding soil around the stem as the plant grows, which lets you stack production vertically inside the same bucket instead of spreading out across ground you may not have. When the modern food system fails, calories win wars, and calories keep families alive. This is why armies and empires throughout history built their survival strategies around this single vegetable, and why any serious survival garden starts here. Number 2 is the sweet potato. Unlike the regular potato, sweet potatoes thrive in warmth, which makes them a perfect backup for families in hotter climates where other crops struggle. They are packed with vitamin A, something that becomes critical when your diet suddenly narrows down to whatever you can grow. And here is something most people do not know. The leaves are edible too. So even before the roots are ready to harvest, your family already has a source of greens, which means one plant is quietly feeding you twice, once through the harvest and once through everything growing above it. Number 3, beans. Any prepper who understands nutrition will tell you that protein is the piece most people forget when they picture a survival garden. Beans solve that problem. They climb, so they take up almost no ground space, which makes them ideal for small pots with a trellis or even a fence. And dried beans can be stored for years, which means a single harvest can feed your family long after the growing season ends. If there is one crop that bridges the gap between vegetable garden and long-term food security, it is beans. Number 4 is peas. Like beans, they climb. They fix nitrogen into the soil, which helps everything else you grow nearby, and they produce heavily in a small footprint. Peas also tolerate cooler weather, so they extend your growing season into months when other crops would fail. A family that plants beans in the summer and peas in the fall never has an empty pot, which means never having a season where the household goes without something fresh coming out of the garden. Number 5, tomatoes. This one might surprise you on a survivalist list, but hear me out. Tomatoes are one of the most reliable calorie-to-effort ratios you can get from a container, and more importantly, they can be preserved. Canned, dried, or turned into sauce, tomatoes become a pantry staple that lasts through winter. A family with jars of home canned tomatoes has a hidden food reserve that most people around them do not have. Number 6 is the pepper. Peppers store well, dry easily, and add flavor to otherwise bland survival meals, which matters more than people think. When food becomes repetitive month after month, morale drops, and a family with low morale makes worse decisions. A pot of peppers on your windowsill is not just nutrition, it is a psychological tool that keeps your household functioning. Number 7, onions. Onions are the backbone of almost every meal humans have cooked for thousands of years, and for good reason. They store for months without any special equipment. They repel certain pests when planted near other crops, and they stretch every other ingredient you have. In a crisis, a family with onions can make a meal out of almost nothing else. Number 8 is garlic. Beyond the kitchen, garlic has been used for generations as a natural way to support the immune system, something your family cannot afford to overlook when hospitals are overwhelmed or unreachable. It grows easily in a deep pot, requires very little attention, and can be replanted from your own harvest indefinitely, meaning once you have garlic, you never have to buy it again. Number 9, carrots. Carrots grow well in deep containers, store for months in cool, damp sand, and provide a steady source of vitamins that become hard to find when fresh produce disappears from stores. They are also one of the easiest crops to teach children to grow, which matters if you are trying to pass this knowledge down to the next generation of your family. Number 10 is kale. This is one of the most resilient leafy greens you can grow, tolerating frost, poor soil, and neglect better than almost anything else on this list. Some strains actually taste sweeter after a hard frost, which means it can keep feeding your family through the exact conditions that wipe out weaker crops. A single plant keeps producing leaves for months, which means your family has a continuous source of vitamins without needing to replant constantly. When the world becomes unpredictable, a plant that keeps giving without demanding much back becomes priceless. Number 11, spinach. Fast-growing and packed with iron, spinach is one of the quickest returns on your effort, often ready to harvest in under a month. In an emergency, speed matters. A family that can go from seed to food in weeks rather than months has an advantage that could make the difference between scarcity and stability. Number 12 is lettuce. It is easy to overlook lettuce as a survival crop because it feels ordinary. But ordinary is exactly what your family needs to maintain during a crisis. Lettuce grows fast, needs shallow containers, and can be harvested leaf by leaf so the plant keeps producing instead of being used up all at once. This is called cut and come again growing, and it is one of the smartest strategies for small space survival gardening. Number 13, radishes. If potatoes are the long game, radishes are the emergency backup. They can go from seed to harvest in as little as 3 weeks, making them the fastest source of fresh food on this entire list. When your family needs something now, not next season, radishes are what you plant. Number 14 is squash, specifically compact or bush varieties bred for containers. Squash is calorie-dense, stores for months without refrigeration if cured properly, and the seeds inside are a source of fat and protein that most people forget about. A single squash can feed a family for several meals, which makes it one of the most efficient crops per pot on this list. And because winter squash can sit on a shelf for months after harvest, it acts almost like a second pantry, quietly waiting until your family actually needs it. And number 15, the crop most people never think to plant, but every prepared family should. Herbs like basil, oregano, and mint. Beyond flavor, many of these herbs have been used for generations in home remedies, and they take up almost no space at all, often thriving on a windowsill where nothing else would grow. When your food becomes limited and repetitive, herbs are what stand between a meal that keeps your family going and a meal that keeps your family sane. Now here is the part of most videos about gardening will never tell you. Growing these 15 crops is not really about gardening. It is about control. When the systems around us are stable, we forget how fragile they actually are. Grocery stores work because trucks run on time. Farms operate without disruption, and thousands of strangers we will never meet do their jobs correctly every single day. That is a lot of trust to place in people we do not know for something as important as feeding our children. A family that grows even a fraction of its own food has quietly stepped outside that dependency. It does not matter if you live in a small apartment with 3 pots on a balcony or a house with a proper garden bed. What matters is that when the shelves are empty, your family's shelves are not. Start small. Pick 3 or 4 crops from this list, the ones that fit your climate and your space, and plant them this week, not next month, not when things get worse. Now, while it is calm, is when preparation actually works. Because when the crisis comes, and history tells us it always eventually does, it will already be too late to start learning. The families who make it through are not the ones who panic and react. They are the ones who quietly prepared while everyone else assumed tomorrow would look exactly like today. Think about what it actually means to hand your children this kind of knowledge. It is not just a skill, it is a form of security that cannot be taken from them, frozen in a bank account, or disrupted by a single point of failure. A child who grows up watching a family turn a handful of pots into food learns something that no textbook teaches, that self-reliance is not a personality trait, it is a practice, built one season at a time. That is the real harvest here. Not just the potatoes or the beans, but a family that knows without any doubt that it can take care of itself. If you found this useful, share it with someone in your family who still thinks none of this could ever happen to them. And if you want the next step, the exact soil mix, watering schedule, and container setup for turning any small space into a real survival garden, that is coming in the next video. Until then, stay ready, stay quiet, and keep your family fed.